Hi buddies! Welcome back to another Build a Theme campaign video where I take a particular theme and talk about the abilities, backgrounds, and subclasses that players should prioritize for a themed campaign like that, as well as potential creatures and things to consider for the actual campaign. This episode we're going to talk about the Halloween theme, simply because when this episode's coming out, I'm hoping it's sometime in late October, as well as, close to Halloween itself. Just for the occasion, look at the little pineapple jack-o'-lantern I got. See, he's kind of cute, right? He's adorable. Alright, moving on. So, a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, I am prioritizing the 2014 rules over the 2024 rules. I am doing this simply because there are more options from 2014. However, if 2024 has an option that works the best for a theme, I will mention that one. Second of all, I am prioritizing flavor over mechanics. So, even if a subclass is just a god tier S-class subclass, it's not necessarily going to be the one that fits the theme the best. In case of a tie, I will prioritize mechanics then. And third of all, I will be only looking at official subclasses from official books printed by Wizards of the Coast. This is not anything against homebrew, but the whole point of these videos is to make things easier for DMs and players. With that all out of the way, let's get started. So I've noticed that for a Halloween themed campaign or one shot, that there's two main methods of thought. The first one is a more serious tone with gothic horror. This is when you deal with monsters such as vampires, werewolves, zombies, and Cthulhu-like apparitions. Sometimes you might throw a few hags in there, but most of the things there are actual monsters that go bump in the night. If you want a good guide, I would actually check out Ravenloft as well as Curse of Strahd, both of which are based on this concept of gothic horror, which fits the Halloween themed campaign very well. The second form of Halloween themed campaigns is a more lighthearted, illusionary based one where, yes, you might run into things like skeletons, jack-o'-lanterns, talking scarecrows, and you still might run into werewolves or vampires, but instead there's a lighthearted, goofy tone to this. This is more your Scooby-Doo, Nightmare Before Christmas, Hocus Pocus, where yes, these are technically the same monsters that go bump in the night, but instead of, actually being frightened by them, the people more find them like a cause of silliness and, happy trick-or-treating kind of deal. When I'm going to be picking subclasses for this, I am going to consider both variants. So, what abilities should you be prioritizing for a campaign setting like this? For skill checks, prioritize things that give you advantage or gives you proficiencies in the following abilities. That would be Investigation, Intimidation, Insight, Stealth, and Persuasion. Intimidation simply because you can use this to scare other monsters or, trick your friends. Investigation for solving mysteries and also figuring out, how to defeat the monsters. Insight, determining what person is a threat and or is seeing through illusions. Stealth for hiding from monsters, and Persuasion for trick-or-treating, for trying to, get the snacks and candies and all that. Speaking of which, the two, toolkits that you should be proficient in, or, look for proficiencies in, are Cook's Utensils and Disguise Kits. Disguise Kits for, putting on costumes and hiding from monsters, and Cook's Utensils for making all the tasty treats. In addition, anything that gives you resistance to necrotic or psychic damage is good, because those are the two damage types that get used most often in a situation like this, as well as anything that can give you immunity or proficiency in resisting charmed or frightened. As far as backgrounds go, any of the backgrounds can fit this holiday themed campaign. However, if I had to pick just one or two, there really is only one option, and that would be the Haunted One background. Now, if everyone's playing a Haunted One, then that gets kind of boring. So maybe have one or two people have the Haunted One background and then have everyone else pick something else. But besides that, there's no real reason to select a particular background. With that being said, let's pick the subclasses for each class. Artificers only have 4 options for subclasses, but there is one that I think actually fits for this, and that is the Armorer subclass. Now, the Armorer subclass is known to be the most tank-like of all the Artificers, and that's because of their level 3 ability, which is the Arcane Armor, as well as the Armor Model, which has a list of variants for it. But I see this as something else. A fully functioning Halloween costume. You essentially turn your magical Iron Man suit into a costume, And if you flavor it like that, it becomes like the perfect thing for an armorer to be in a Halloween-themed campaign. When you only have 4 options, this is probably the best I'm gonna get. Side note, I did actually make an Artificer subclass that's based off of Dr. Frankenstein. If you want to hear more about that, let me know in the comments below. As we move on to the Barbarian, there is actually one subclass that I think is the best for Halloween, and that is the Path of the Beast Barbarian found in Tasha's. The reason I think this is if you read the description of this, it says that the barbarians who follow this path get their rage from a bestial spark. If you go on to read the description even more, one of the options for this is being related to a lycanthrope in some fashion. With that thought in mind, lycanthropes are a really big part of Halloween, whether it's the gothic horror or like the happy-go-lucky Halloween that you would probably consider. You can actually flavor that they can use their rage, and their rage can actually make a lycanthropy curse get worse and worse. Or you could just say that, you know, like, they survived a lycanthropy curse and therefore now, like, have a partial power boost for it. On top of that, the fact that they get claws, a tail, and other bestial effects whenever they rage can kind of add to the idea of, like, you know, as they rage, it makes their costume better. And the other thing that makes me think of is Enid from Wednesday. So, all in all, I think Path of the Beast is perfect for Halloween. So, when I was looking at the Bard subclasses, the first one that came to mind was College of Whispers because of its boost to stealth and its focus on secrecy. However, when doing my research, I actually found a more perfect Halloween-themed subclass, and that would be the College of Spirits subclass found in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. And let me tell you right now, I don't think there's a more Halloween-themed subclass out of all of them than this one. So let's go down the list of why I think this is. First of all, it's got 2 level 3 abilities that fit the Halloween theme. The first one is literally called Spiritual Focus, which can turn your arcane focus, as well as the thing you use to talk to spirits, into a candle, crystal ball, or a skull, all of which fit the Halloween vibe. The other level 3 ability is called Tales from the Beyond, where you tell a story, and as you tell a story, a spirit appears and causes either a buff or a debuff depending on which spirit you summon based on a table of 12 options, I believe. Now, essentially, this is you tell a ghost story, and the ghost story comes to life. I don't think there's a more Halloween-fitting kind of vibe than that. If you're not convinced by that, the level 6 ability is actually called Spirit Session. This allows you to make a ritual that summons a spirit that you can then ask questions to. Now, this gives me Haunting of Venice vibes, which is also a book that takes place during Halloween. Not to mention, this subclass literally comes out of the most Halloween-like books that Wizards of the Coast has printed. In short, I don't think there is a more thematically or mechanically fitting subclass for Halloween than this one. So, for a Halloween campaign, the Cleric actually has a tie for the domains that I think would fit best. And there's actually a reason for the tie. In my opinion, I think the 2 options would be the Grave Domain for a more serious campaign, and the Trickery Domain for a more lighthearted campaign. So let's focus on the Grave Domain first. Grave Domain's whole thing is about keeping the balance of life and death, while also bringing peace to the dead. So this, to me, fits like the gothic horror vibe, because any person who wants to, you know, bring peace to the dead, this gives you like Sixth Sense, as well as, you know, dealing with like hordes of undead. On top of that, their channel divinity ability is called Path of the Grave, and what it allows you to do is essentially put a curse on a person, which also fits gothic horror vibes. Now, moving on to Trickery Domain, the reason I think this one best fits for a lighthearted campaign is simply because most of the abilities you can utilize for like trick-or-treating. Like, let's start off with their channel divinity, which basically gives the ability to make a perfect illusion of yourself, which you can use to play tricks and also trigger people's traps without actually, like, you know, falling for them yourself. On top of that, they get the ability Blessing of the Trickster, which gives them advantage on stealth checks, which they can then later pair on with another ability they get called Cloak of Shadows, which makes them straight up invisible. On top of that, their expanded spell list gets Charm Person, Disguise Self, Mirror Image, and Blink, all of which you can use for maneuverability, hiding from people, disguising yourself, and all of which can be used for trick-or-treating and pranking. In short, I think Grave Domain is better for a more serious vibe, and Trickery Domain is better for a light-hearted vibe, thus the reason I gave it a tie. So when I was looking at the druids for this kind of campaign, I found myself waffling between two options, but then I ultimately decided on one of them, that being the Circle of Spores druid found in Tasha's. I have a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is the expanded spell list. These druids get like the following spells: Chill Touch, Gentle Repose, Animate Dead, Gaseous Form, Blight, and Confusion, all of which fit well for a Halloween campaign, especially Gaseous Form and Animate Dead. Second is their level 6 ability, which is called Fungal Infestation, where they essentially put their spores into a corpse and it reanimates into an ally for them, essentially making them a druidic necromancer. Now, this to me gives me more Last of Us vibes. Also, their final ability at level 14 makes them immune to being frightened, which is one of the things I said that would be a check off the list. All in all, Druid Necromancer is definitely perfect for Halloween shenanigans. Fighter may not take that much of an explanation, but I did decide on Eldritch Knight from the PHB. I have two main reasons for this one. So the first one is because that they get an expanded spell list from the wizard table. And because the wizards have a lot of support magic, you can use a lot of the magic for 1. Halloween shenanigans, 2. Searching for monsters, or 3. Fighting certain monsters. Some of the most useful spells they can get are things like Light, Prestidigitation, Fog Cloud, Mage Hand, Mage Armor, Invisibility, Darkness, Dark Vision, Fear, Haste, and Vampiric Touch. All of those spells are useful in a Halloween campaign setting. Now, on top of that, the other reason I decided on Eldritch Knight was its level 15 ability called Arcane Charge, which is a pseudo-teleport ability, which you can kind of use as a jump scare tactic. Again, maybe this isn't my strongest argument, but I think it is the best one for a fighter thematically. Side note, I actually want to write a video about Eldritch Knight or Arcane Trickster because I think people play these wrong. And I would like to know about your opinions of that in the comments. Jumping right into Monk for your spooky entertainment, we have Way of the Shadow Monk found in the player's handbook. This one I think is actually perfect for any Halloween hijinks. Now, first off, at level 3, they can start using their key points to cast 4 certain spells. Those spells are Darkness, Dark Vision, Pass Without Trace, and Silence. All 4 of which help out with stealth. At level 6, they actually get a special teleporting ability called Shadow Step. This initially allows them to go from one shadow and teleport to another one within the realm of 60 feet. This is really good because since most of the campaigns that deal with Halloween happen either at night or in dark places, the monk not only fits thematically, but it also gains some more maneuverability when it comes to getting away from monsters or just hiding for Halloween pranks. Now, in addition, the monk can straight up become invisible with Cloak of Shadows starting at level 14, essentially making them the perfect stealth master for Halloween hijinks. In other words, I think just Way of the Shadows is the stealthiest monk, making it perfect for this kind of campaign. So, I think I have an odd selection for a Halloween paladin, so please hear me out. For the paladin, I've selected as their subclass to be the Oath of Watchers, which you can find in Tasha's. Now, the reason I select this is for one particular character archetype, that being the role of the guardian / looming parent. The whole point of the Oath of Watchers is that they look out for extraplanar or extraterrestrial threats. So whether that's aberrations, demons, devils, vampires, or elder gods that cause madness, these paladins remain vigilant and look out for them. On top of that, their expanded spell list includes things like Alarm, Detect Magic, Moonbeam, See Invisibility, Counterspell, Non-Detection, Banishment, and Hold Monster. All of those spells are usually designed to locate and remove threats, as well as keeping the various wards and charges safe. So, in other words, I think you could be something like Steve Harrington from Stranger Things while being an Oath of Watchers paladin, and thus the reason I think it fits for a Halloween theme. Veteran D&D players, you probably saw this coming, but the best Halloween ranger is the Gloomstalker, which you can find in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Now, before I get into my reasons for it, I just want to, real quick read the description in the book. Gloomstalkers are at home in the darkest places, deep under the earth, in gloomy alleyways, in primeval forests, and wherever else the light dims. Most folk enter such places with trepidation, but a Gloomstalker ventures boldly into the darkness, seeking to ambush threats before they can reach the broader world. Such rangers are often found in the Underdark, but they will go any place where evil lurks in the shadows. Loves dark places, likes to hide, and essentially likes to scare the crap out of people. Like, how do you get better than that? And if that doesn't convince you, let's just keep on going. They get extra spells such as Disguise Self, Fear, and Greater Invisibility. Good for Halloween costumes, scaring people, and hiding from monsters. If you're still not convinced, their ability Dread Ambusher gives you extra movement and initiative bonuses to get a head start on your scaring or your hiding. Umbral Sight grants dark vision and or improves it, and makes you invisible in the darkness when you aren't moving. You get all of that at level 3. Like, I don't even need to get into the stronger stuff. You got bonus initiative, bonus stealth, disguises, jump scares. This is literally the Halloween build. Before I went into my research, I actually thought Rogue was going to be a very hard decision to make. And when I actually started the research, I found that not to be the case. There is a clear winner, and that is the Phantom Rogue found in Tasha's. The reason the Phantom Rogue, in my opinion, is the best choice is because these rogues have a mystical connection with the dead. So, first of all, at level 3, they get an ability called Whispers of the Dead, which gives them an extra skill proficiency or tool proficiency they don't already have. And they get it by learning it from a ghost. And every single rest, they are capable of changing that particular proficiency. Whether it's short or long, basically a ghost tells them how to do things. The other level 3 ability they get is Wails from the Grave, which gives them extra ghostly damage on their sneak attacks. Later on, they get the ability Tokens from the Departed, and this will give, if they spend the token, it can give them advantage on death saving throws, even more damage on their sneak attacks, and the ability to ask the dead a single question. Then, later on, they get an ability called Ghost Walk, which is kind of self-explanatory. They can, like, walk through walls and semi-teleport. Literally just making them Coraline. This is, like, Halloween perfection. I love this subclass, and I really want people to try it out. A Halloween sorcerer, in my opinion, is the Shadow Sorcerer, which can be found in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. 1, their magic literally comes from the Shadowfell, aka the Plane of Shadows. 2, when you choose this subclass, you get a dark vision of up to 120 feet. That is genuinely kind of insane. 3, also at level 1, you get the ability to reduce damage that would originally knock you out to then take you to 1 point instead. Again, you get all of those at level 1. At level 3, you get the Darkness spell, which you can use, of course, to either hide in or use to scare people. Then, at level 6, you can actually summon your own Shadow Hound, basically a shadowy, ghostly companion. And then, at level 14, you have the ability to teleport through shadows, kind of like the Shadow Monk. So, let's just recap a little bit. Extra stealth, hard to kill, summons ghostly companion, comfortable in the dark. That seems very Halloween-like to me. So, I think the Warlock is kind of like just the Halloween class, and the reason is that their power system with the invocations and the fact that it's so customizable gives me the idea that it's very similar to having like a costume. So, with that being said, I think any of the patrons work really well for a Halloween-themed campaign, just because I think a Warlock itself works well in a Halloween-themed campaign. With that being said, the decision I made is just more on personal bias rather than actual, like, you know, this one fits the best. So I have decided, for your viewing pleasure, the Great Old One. And the Great Old One as a patron essentially is an amalgamation of madness, and they kind of, like, you know, bring you to clarity or madness themselves. And I think that kind of fits in with the theme of Halloween and the madness that occurs within this holiday. As extra spells, you get things like Dissonant Whispers, Detect Thoughts, Phantasmal Force, Clairvoyance, and Dominate Beast and Dominate Person. To recap, Causing Madness, Mind Reading, Ghost Force Power, and Mind Control. In addition, at level 10, you get sort of a Thought Shield that protects you not just from psychic damage, but having your mind read as well as prevents you from being charmed or frightened. So this actually is good when dealing with a lot of monsters that are trying to scare you or mess with your own head while you simultaneously screw with theirs. So my whole reason for picking this for the Halloween build is their defensive capabilities in dealing with the monsters that go bump in the night. If you are not able to predict my decision on the Halloween wizard, then you either don't think about Halloween very often or you don't know much about D&D. Because the best choice for a wizard for a Halloween themed campaign is a necromancer. And to be honest, I only need 3 reasons for this to be. Reason number 1, their level 2 ability is literally called Grim Harvest, which allows you to siphon life force. That's very gothic horror to me. Not convinced? They also get an ability at level 6, which allows them to cast Animate Dead free once per long rest. And anytime they cast Animate Dead, they get 2 undead creatures instead of 1. So in other words, whenever they cast the Animate Dead spell, it's a 2-for-1 deal, which means they can make an undead horde themselves. Again, very gothic horror. Still not convinced? Well, let's go to number 3. At level 14, they get the ability to resist necrotic damage and take control of undead hordes. These undead hordes do not need to be created by them. This means that probably a good 2/3 of the monsters you run into in a Halloween-themed campaign, you can just take control of if you are a high enough necromancer wizard. I don't think there's another wizard that just fits the Halloween vibe more than our undead raising necromancer. And that's the Halloween campaign. If I was going to build a party myself, I would actually want the College of Spirits Bard for the fact that they make ghost stories come to life, the Gloomstalker Ranger for jump scares, the Way of the Shadow Monk for the stealth and maneuverability, and then along with that, I think I would go with the Armorer Artificer because of the idea of having a fully functioning costume, and then the Oath of the Watcher's Paladin to protect the rest of the party. Now, a shout out to the Necromancer Wizard as well as literally any Warlock because I still think that they fit fairly well. But I would also like to know, what would your Halloween-themed campaign look like? Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Have a wonderful day, and happy Halloween.